My friends, have you ever tried so hard to explain your feelings to someone only to end up feeling even more misunderstood? Have you ever used all the right words, all the right emotions, all the right intentions, yet the situation only got worse? It hurts, doesn't it? Today, we're going to solve a problem that drains millions of hearts every single day. The belief that everything can be fixed through words. Some wounds cannot be healed by talking. Some conflicts cannot be solved by explaining. Some relationships cannot be repaired by communicating. Sometimes, only distance can heal what words cannot. My dear friends, we live in a world where we are constantly told, talk it out, explain yourself, communicate more, say how you feel. And yes, communication is important, no doubt. But what about the moments when communication becomes exhausting? What about the situations where talking only makes things worse? What about the people who don't listen no matter how gently you speak? What about the conflicts where silence brings more peace than conversation? Words are powerful, yes, but distance carries a different kind of power. A quieter one, a deeper one, a healing one. Distance has a way of bringing clarity where confusion once lived. Distance has a way of restoring peace where noise had taken over. Distance has a way of revealing truth where emotions had blurred perception. Sometimes stepping away is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom, a sign of self-respect, a sign of emotional maturity. Today, we will walk together through the 4 truths that explain why distance heals more deeply than words ever will. So, sit with me, my friends. Let's explore this together, slowly, gently, deeply, because someone out there desperately needs this message. My friends, when emotions run high, clarity runs low. When we are hurt, frustrated, angry, or overwhelmed, our mind becomes foggy. Words spoken in such moments often come from pain, not wisdom. And pain rarely speaks kindly. Have you ever tried explaining something while you were angry? The words just don't land the right way. The other person doesn't understand you. And then you get even more emotional. And then the misunderstanding grows. This is how most arguments escalate, not because people don't care, but because people don't pause. You see, distance is not always physical. Sometimes distance is simply a moment of silence, a step back, a deep breath, a few hours or days of space to let emotions settle like still water after a storm. Imagine shaking a bottle of muddy water. In the middle of the shaking, you can't see through it. Everything is cloudy, everything is messy, everything is unclear. But if you place it down and leave it untouched, the dirt slowly settles to the bottom. Eventually, the water becomes clear again. Your mind is exactly like that. When life shakes you, everything feels confusing. But if you give yourself distance, clarity returns. Understanding rises, perspective comes back. Distance helps you see what the argument was truly about, not what it felt like in the moment. Distance gives you time to understand whether you were overreacting. The situation was genuinely hurtful. Your expectations were unrealistic. The person truly wronged you. The issue is temporary or deep-rooted. Distance is clarity. Clarity is wisdom. Wisdom is peace. Talking in the middle of emotional chaos often creates more chaos. But stepping away, even briefly, gives your mind time to heal. My friends, never be afraid of distance. Be afraid of forcing conversations when your heart is not ready, because clarity grows in silence, never in noise. My dear friends, not every situation deserves your reaction. Not every person deserves immediate access to your emotions. Not every conflict deserves your energy. You are not a machine that must respond instantly. You are a human being with feelings, boundaries, and limits. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is protect your peace by creating space. Have you ever noticed how some people drain you without even trying? Some people misunderstand you no matter what you say. Some people twist your words. Some people hear only what they want to hear. For such people, distance is not selfish. It is necessary. Let me share something powerful with you. When you give someone too much access to your emotions, you give them too much power over your peace. Not everyone can handle that responsibility. Not everyone deserves that responsibility. Distance helps you take that power back. Distance helps you say, I choose my peace over this argument. I choose my sanity over this conversation. I choose my well-being over trying to be understood. I choose to step away, not because I don't care, but because I care about myself too. Think about the heart. When it beats too fast, you place your hand over your chest and breathe deeply. You don't argue with your heart. You don't shout at it. You give it space. The mind works the same way. When your peace is threatened, you don't fight harder. You give yourself distance. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong. It doesn't matter who wins or loses. What matters is your mental health, your emotional stability, your inner balance. Some conversations are better left for later. Some arguments don't deserve to continue. Some wounds don't need words. They need silence. Let people misunderstand you for a moment. Let people assume things. Let people think what they want. You don't need to explain everything every time. Silence may confuse them, but it will protect you. And protecting your peace is always worth it. My dear friends, when you step away from something, you begin to see it more clearly. Distance reveals truth the way sunlight reveals dust in a dark room. Suddenly you see things that were always there but invisible before. When you're too close to someone or something, you cannot see reality properly. Emotion blinds you. Attachment blinds you. Expectations blind you. But distance removes the fog. Think about this. When you walk away from a situation, one of two things happens. Either your heart feels relief or it feels longing. If it feels relief, that means the situation was draining you. Your soul was suffocating. Your peace was drowning. You needed space more than you realized. If it feels longing, that means the situation mattered. But now the distance gives you perspective. You understand what needs to change. You understand what boundaries need to be set. You understand what the truth of the relationship is. Distance reveals intention. Distance reveals priorities. Distance reveals real feelings. Distance reveals hidden truths. Let me share a small story with you. A man once held a painting right against his eyes. He couldn't see the colors. He couldn't see the patterns. He couldn't understand the beauty. It was too close. But when he stepped back, the entire picture became clear. The colors made sense. The details appeared. The meaning unfolded. Life is exactly the same. Sometimes you're too close to a situation to understand it. You're too involved, too emotional, too attached, too invested. That closeness becomes a blindfold. But distance removes that blindfold. Suddenly you see who values you and who doesn't dare, who respects you and who only uses you, who listens to you and who hears only their ego, who cares for you and who cares only for themselves, who you need to keep close and who you need to let go. You cannot see truth when you're drowning in it. You can see it only when you step away. Distance exposes false friendships. Distance strengthens genuine connections. Distance breaks illusions. Distance reveals reality. And reality, my friends, is the foundation of healing. My dear friends, perspective is everything. Two people can look at the same situation and see completely different realities. Two people can hear the same words and interpret two different meanings. Two people can experience the same moment and feel two different emotions. Why? Because perspective changes everything. And nothing changes perspective like distance. When you step away, your anger cools down, your hurt softens, your mind opens, your understanding expands. You begin to see things from a higher point of view, not from your wounds, but from your wisdom. Distance gives you the emotional height to see the full picture. And my friends, the higher your perspective, the smaller your problems become. Sometimes you realize the issue wasn't as big as you thought. Sometimes you realize the issue was much bigger than you thought. Sometimes you realize the other person was hurting too. Sometimes you realize you weren't wrong. You were just tired. Sometimes you realize you weren't right. You were just emotional. Distance shows you that people are not villains. They are simply imperfect humans trying their best. Distance reminds you that relationships are not battles. They are lessons. Distance teaches you that forgiveness is not weakness. It is freedom. Words cannot always create that level of understanding. Sometimes the heart needs time, space, and silence. When you're hurt, your world shrinks. When you heal, your world expands. Distance opens doors that anger keeps locked. Distance teaches lessons that arguments cannot. Distance brings healing that words fail to provide. My dear friends, remember this. You don't always have to explain. You don't always have to argue. You don't always have to respond. You don't always have to fix everything immediately. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away for a while. Not to punish, not to manipulate, not to escape, but to heal, to breathe, to think, to feel, to reflect, to return with clarity and peace. Distance is not the end. Sometimes distance is the beginning of real understanding. Sometimes distance is the medicine the relationship needed. Sometimes distance is the prayer your heart was waiting for. Let people say you're distant. Let people think you've changed. Let people wonder why you became quiet. You don't owe them explanations. You owe yourself healing. Because in the end, distance can heal wounds that words only made deeper. So whenever life becomes overwhelming, whenever conversations become painful, whenever emotions become heavy, remember, distance is not disrespect. Distance is self-respect. Distance is not avoidance. Distance is recovery. Distance is not silence. Distance is healing. May you always choose the healing path, even if it requires distance. And may that distance bring you back to peace, back to clarity, back to yourself,